video Skype connection for the next hour and 52 minutes by Gerald Celente, founder of the Trends Research Institute in 1980, trendsresearch.com. He really doesn't need any introduction to this audience. Plus, he's all over CNN, Fox, MSNBC, you name it. He's a best-selling author. And I wanted to get him on to talk about the deterioration in the world. What he predicted 2.5, 3 years ago, that they would come after the pension funds, that the banks would further bankrupt society, that they would cut city and county services, while at the same time raising taxes, that tax rebellions would form, that people would be on the streets. Again, this is 2.5, 3 years ago. That's now all beginning to happen. And where he sees this going. Also, Obama fear-mongering. We know Governor Ridge put out fake terror alerts and has now admitted it. The nuclear 9/11. Now Obama's saying this again. They're talking about going into Iran. There are so many issues I want to discuss. And I want to take your phone calls for questions and comments for Gerald Celente. And basically, the sky's the limit. You can talk about whatever you want with him. 1-800-259-9231. I appreciate him. He's a very busy person giving us this in-depth, extended interview today. Gerald, it's good to have you back with us.
Oh, it's always great being on with you, Alex.
So much has been developing and unfolding and happening, and I have my list of questions, but what's coming out in the next Trends Journal? What are you focused on right now?
The next Trends Journal is going to be out in a day or two, and the headline story is The Great War. They're leading us to the Great War, the first Great War of the new millennium. And you touched on it with the fear-mongering that they're throwing out there. Let's go back to 1920s. It was the same scheme, just a different time. The Wall Street gang bankrupted the nation. They had a different Ponzi scheme or a Madoff scheme. And the markets crashed in 29. We go into a severe depression. And what do? They lead you to war after they try everything else. We're about to have the bailout bubble burst. First, we had the dot-com bubble go bust. They reinflated that with the real estate and credit crisis bubble. That broke. Rather than letting the big boys on Wall Street lose any money, they loan them trillions of dollars for free to keep juicing this economy. And it makes it look like there's a recovery. It's no recovery. They covered it up with this Santa money. And that's going to run out. It's going to run out globally. You see what's going on in Greece. You see what's going on in the Ukraine.
And you said that a year ago. You said it would run out and that they would want more. And now they're saying not just more bailout. Now the bankers are telling us we want value added. We want carbon taxes. We want sales taxes. And we're going to destroy the economy, just like back in October of 2008 when they held us hostage. They said, you give us unlimited trillions and you let us keep it secret or there's going to be a depression. And Congress said no, so they went out and badmouthed the economy. The stock market plunged by almost half. Congress passed it, and now they're holding us hostage again.
That's right. And what they're going to do, and this is what the Trends Journal is all about, it's the Great War. And tracking trends is the knowledge of where we are, a clear understanding, how we got here so that we can see where we're going. And you go look back at the last two great wars that they've foisted on the American economy. Look what they started with Afghanistan. It began with, we're going to get Osama bin Laden and those evildoers and bring them to justice. And now 10 years later, no Osama bin Laden. Now they're giving a blind eye to opium production. That's a New York Times story. We're not making that up. And then the Iraq War is a total loser. And now they're extending the war into Pakistan. And that's a big one. So what we're looking at is the Great War. They're taking the world to war. Look at who these people are. Obama, Bush, Clinton, Gates, McChrystal. They're levels between psychopaths and sociopaths. And that's all they are. And people are looking up to these people. And most of them, of course, they've never worn a uniform or fought in one. And they all talk tough about what we have to do. We means you and me, and the taxes are the other issue. So that's what we're writing about.
Well, I mean, you called it. The banks are openly telling the government what to do, just like Iceland, just like Greece. And I want to get back into the big war and how they plan to get there. But let's first move back to the domestic front. What is Washington thinking? 22+% real unemployment, jobless claims going way up, people's pay going way down, the economy definitely going into depression, and the government at the federal level is just growing. Meanwhile, Ohio, Texas, Michigan, New Jersey, laying off half the cops or more than half the sheriff's deputies in many cities. 4-day-a-week school. They're making DMV workers in California work 5 days, only be paid for 4. Can't people recognize that we're going into a third world Argentine or Nigerian scenario where 90% of the money goes to the Madoffs through their fraud, and then we pay more taxes, but we get less services? I mean, this is insane.
Well, let's take the first question you asked. What are they thinking about? This is the red carpet crowd. They don't think about anything. Look at the way that they live. Everywhere they go, they fly around in jet planes big enough to move a half a city. Every time they arrive, the red carpet comes out, they salute, the band plays, and they have great dinners. And it goes on from the secretaries of this or that to all these two-bit congressmen that are treated like royalty every time they go abroad. They're thinking of nothing but themselves. That's why they're politicians. And any adult that believes a politician is going to look out for their benefit really has to have their head examined. Ronald Reagan said it best. He said they're the second oldest profession. But at least with the first oldest profession, you end up with a happy ending. So what we're looking at here is they don't care where the economy's going as long as they continue to live in the style that they've been accustomed to. These are not smart people. Listen to the words. They always talk about Obama, for example, being, quote, a brilliant politician. That's it. That's as far as it goes. Hillary Clinton, a politician. They're politicians. Why don't people grow up and understand what they're going to get? They're going to get the shaft, and they're getting it. But again, after all this dies down, and they're pumping it up now with this two-bit nuclear summit that they just held, and they're waving the red flag at Iran. And by the way, the other one is going to be, we're most concerned about what's going to happen with Israel. That story jumped out of the news overnight when they said that they were going to continue to build housing developments on occupied land, which is against the UN resolutions, against international law. They brushed it over. They did not, Netanyahu did not come to that nuclear summit, although Israel is alleged to have between 100 and 400 nuclear warheads. So we can see where we're leading here, and we believe that there's going to be something going on between Israel and Iran, that the United States is going to go into it with them, and when this happens, it's the beginning of the Great War.
And by the way, Russian President Medvedev said 2 days ago to Haaretz, he said, Israel, don't attack Iran. This could cause World War III, a global catastrophe. And I've interviewed top former Pentagon and CIA analysts. I've read what the others are saying. It all runs from bad to worse. A huge regional war, oil prices tripling, our troops being attacked, depression. That's on the bad. To the worse, starting a nuclear war with Russia and China. And we saw Cheney running that sneak attack with the Georgians on 888. That's now been declassified that he wanted to start war. So sure, you got a lot of these political whores and idiots in Washington, like Congressman Hank Johnson, who believes that islands are floating and they may capsize. I mean, he's now said on record, no, he believes islands float. But you've also got the big banks and corporations, the white shoe boys you talk about, who, I mean, they've taken over. They've stolen trillions. They're running things. I mean, so there's also some smart ones in there.
Of course. And, you know, that great quote, and we have that one in the Trends Journal, which I know you know about, Smedley Butler, the most decorated Marine at the time in Marine history, calling war a racket. And he talks about how he doesn't want to fight anymore for the Brown brothers, which is, another brokerage firm.
That was the Bushes.
And the banks. He talks about it. It's a racket, and that's what people have to know. The banks are robbing. It's the greatest bank robbery in American history, in world history, and the banks are doing the robbing. They could care less about us, Alex. They're money junkies. They're junkies, just like a junkie needs his heroin. They need their money. They never have enough. You look at that guy Buffett. Ew, I want more billions. I want more billions. When do you have enough? And that's what they're doing. The gap between the rich and the poor is the widest in the United States than any of the industrialized nations. We went from the most egalitarian post-World War II to now where only the rich have everything and the rest of us, and we have to pay more taxes so they can get more.